The ship was dying, and no one knew why. Commander Jace Morgan wiped sweat from his brow as he crawled out of the narrow maintenance shaft. His arms were covered in grease and tiny cuts. He had checked every pump, every valve, and every inch of the lower fuel line. But still fuel was vanishing. The star cruiser Viridian Wolf had enough fuel for 10 jumps. Now it barely had one. Jace had locked down every access hatch. No sign of leaks, no bursts, no sign of sabotage. And yet, the alarms kept screaming about critical fuel loss. The crew was down to just 9 after the last battle. The war had come suddenly, out of nowhere. One minute, the Terran colonies were in peace negotiations with the Zithari. The next, orbital stations were burning. The Viridian Wolf was one of the few ships that had survived the surprise strike. They had taken in survivors. One of them had been found inside a damaged escape pod floating near the wreckage of a Zithari warcruiser. Her name, or what they thought was her name, was Alari. She didn't speak much. Green skin, silver-white hair, and bright eyes that shimmered in the dark. She wore no uniform, just a strange reflective bodysuit that clung to her like second skin. She seemed harmless, weak even. Maybe a science officer or a slave. Jace didn't trust her. He didn't say it out loud, but he didn't like the way she moved. Too graceful, too aware. Like she was listening even when no one was speaking. Jace slammed the locker shut and took a deep breath. "Computer," he barked. "Run another thermal scan. Check for fuel vapor in non-designated areas." "Negative." The eye responded. No abnormal readings. Jace clenched his jaw. He was the only engineer left after Higgins was vaporized in the hangar. Now it was up to him to keep the ship alive. And every second wasted was a second closer to drifting dead in space. He walked down the central corridor, boots thudding on metal flooring. The overhead lights flickered slightly, another reminder of how fragile their systems were getting. Then he heard it. A strange hum. Low, steady, almost like a soft suction sound. It was coming from the auxiliary chamber 1 of the oldest unused rooms near the engine core. That room was supposed to be sealed. Jace drew his sidearm from his belt. The old plasma pistol felt heavy in his hand. He didn't like drawing it unless he had to. But something felt wrong. The door to the auxiliary chamber wasn't just open. It had been overridden. The lock panel showed signs of tampering. JAC. He stepped through and froze in the dim green light. He saw her. Alari stood at the far end of the chamber, her head tilted back, her lips wrapped around a glowing tube connected to the wall. Fuel. Raw. Hyperion plasma fuel, radioactive, deadly to humans. Even a drop would melt flesh. She was gulping it down like water. JSE single quotes. His heart slammed in his chest. "What the hell are you doing?" Ilari didn't stop. Her eyes locked onto his, glowing bright with something he hadn't seen before. Hunger. A kind of hunger that sent a chill down his spine. She pulled her mouth from the tube and licked her lips. "It's sweet," she whispered. JAC. He didn't lower his weapon. "That's ship fuel. That's why we're losing power." "You've been drinking it?" She nodded slowly, unashamed. "It feeds me. Heals me." Jace took a step back. "You're Zithari." Alari tilted her head. "Hef, my mother was. My father was from your side. I was meant to live among you." Jace looked around. The entire chamber had been altered. Pipes redirected. Vents shifted. This wasn't random. She had engineered this. "How long have you been doing this?" "Since the second cycle," she said. "You didn't notice. You don't look where life hides." Jace didn't know whether to shoot her or run. "Why didn't you say anything? You could have killed us all." "I didn't want to kill anyone," she said quietly. "I was starving. My kind needs fuel. Your kind needs rules." Jace's mind was spinning. This wasn't just about fuel anymore. This was a new kind of enemy, or maybe not an enemy at all. Maybe something worse. Need to stop, he said, his voice steady. Now, she smiled faintly. If I stop, I die. If I keep going, your ship dies. So tell me, human, which life matters more? Jace didn't have an answer. Not yet, but he knew one thing, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Jace didn't lower his weapon. Ilari's eyes glowed softly. In the green light, her body was completely still, almost like a statue, yet every part of her seemed alert, waiting. The room smelled faintly of ozone and plasma. The hum of the ship's systems pulsed through the walls, but weaker than before. The fuel reserves had dropped dangerously low. Jace's voice was calm, but tight. Back away from the line, now. Ilari didn't move. She simply said, "You think I'm the threat. But it's not me." "You're drinking our last fuel supply," Jace snapped. "I've been crawling through vents for hours thinking there was a leak while you've been stealing it to feed yourself. That sounds like a threat to me." She stepped back slightly, but her face showed no fear. "Your ship has other problems, Jace. I took only what I needed, just enough to stay alive. If I had taken more, you'd be floating dead by now." Jace lowered his pistol a little but didn't holster it. "How are you even alive? Hyperion fuel is toxic. It burns through everything. It's not food. Not for you," she said. "For my kind, it's life. It powers our cells, repairs our organs. Your weapons wounded me. Your medkits couldn't help, the fuel did." Jace stared at her, trying to make sense of it. He had heard rumors of Zathari hybrids, created during the last war, half-breeds bred in secret labs. But no one believed those stories anymore. "Until now, you're a hybrid?" he asked slowly. She nodded. "I wasn't supposed to survive. But I did." He took a breath, then spoke more quietly. "Why didn't you just tell us?" Her gaze flickered. "Because your crew would have spaced me the second they found out what I was. You think we're monsters, and maybe we are. But I didn't choose to be born this way." Jace finally lowered the gun fully, though he didn't put it away. "And now what? You keep drinking fuel, and we all die?" She looked at him with something that almost resembled sadness. "I don't want to harm your crew. I want to help. But I can't help if I'm dying." Jace leaned against the wall, rubbing his eyes. His mind was racing. "We're low on power. If we drop below 20%, life support shuts down in half the ship. I can't lose that." "I can survive without air for hours," Ilari said. "But your crew won't." "I know." Jace looked around the altered chamber again. Wires, tubes, pipes. She had rerouted systems in secret, silently building herself a hidden lifeline, while everyone thought she was just a rescued civilian. "I need time," Jace muttered. "Time to figure this out. Time to fix the fuel systems." She nodded. "Then give me just a little more, and I'll help you find where the rest is going." "What do you mean?" Jace asked. "You said you only took a little." "I did," she replied, "but your fuel reserves are dropping faster than even I can drink. Something else is wrong." That hit him like a punch to the gut. He hadn't thought about that. He'd assumed she was the only reason. But what if she wasn't? "You're telling me there really is a leak?" "Not a leak," she said. "A drain." Jace's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying someone else is stealing fuel?" Ilari looked him dead in the eyes. "Or something." Jace stared at the wall. The battle, the escape, the rescued survivors, it all came flooding back. They had picked up not just Ilari, but 3 other escape pods. One of them had no signs of life. The sensors had shown empty space. But they took it in anyway. What if? Jace bolted toward the engine log terminal. He called out to the AI, "Show me the access logs for Pod 9, full diagnostics since docking." "Access denied," the computer responded. "Administrator lockout." "Active," he frowned. "Who locked it?" "Unknown." Jace turned to Ilari. Can you override systems? She hesitated. Only if you trust me. I don't, Jace said, but I've got no choice. He watched as she stepped forward, fingers glowing faintly with blue light. She touched the control panel near the fuel system without even typing. The screen flickered and opened. You have Zathari tech embedded in you? Jace asked. She nodded. Part of me is machine. It was meant for war. I use it to survive. The logs opened. Jace's heart pounded. Pod 9A had been opened from the inside. 4 times. Each time, more fuel was gone. Jace stepped back, stunned. That pod was supposed to be empty. It wasn't even transmitting a life signal. Ilari whispered, it wasn't empty. It was hiding something. And I don't think it's human. Jace stood frozen in front of the screen. Pod 9A had opened from the inside, 4 times. During hours when the crew was asleep or distracted, no one had logged the movement. The ship's system hadn't raised a single warning. How did I miss this? Jace muttered. Because whatever came from that pod, Ilari said softly, knows how to hide. Jace looked at her. You're saying something snuck aboard? Something smart? Ilari gave a slow nod. It's not just smart. It's born. To infiltrate. To mimic. To survive. Jace clenched his jaw. A Zathari spy. Worse, she said. A Shade-class parasite. We call them fuel ghosts. Jace had heard rumors during training. Old war stories told in whispers. Creatures that fed on energy, electrical currents, plasma, even the nervous systems of living beings. They were small. Almost invisible, but deadly. You're not serious, Jace said. Those things were banned by the Accord. Even the Zathari outlawed them. Ilari met his eyes. This one didn't get the message. Jace backed away from the console. That thing is somewhere on this ship right now. It doesn't move during high activity. It hides in the power lines. In shadows, but it's feeding. Every time the lights flicker, every system crash, it's taking more. Jace wiped sweat from his neck. Why haven't you told anyone this before? Because no one would believe me, she said. And because I was too weak to fight it. He turned to her. But you're strong now? She looked at the tube sheet. Been drinking from earlier. Strong enough to track it. Maybe even stop it. Jace didn't trust her. But he trusted his own eyes even less. He'd seen the fuel disappear. Seen the doors unlock themselves. The flickering lights. The electrical hum in the walls. It wasn't just a system fault. Something was feeding. He nodded once. What do? You need? Ilari's expression shifted. Full access to the power lines. No more lockouts. If I go into the ship's grid, I might be able to sense where it's nesting. Jace hesitated. Giving her full access meant risking sabotage. But if she was right, they had no choice. I'll do it, he said. But if I catch you doing anything else, you won't, she cut in gently. Because if I fail, you won't have a ship left. They moved fast. Jace opened the grid control room and manually bypassed the II restrictions. Ilari stood in front of the terminal, her palms glowing with pulsing light. She closed her eyes and whispered in a language he didn't understand. Lines of code filled the screen. The map of the ship's electrical system lit up like a nervous system. There, she said, pointing. Near the vent shafts on Deck 5, behind the coolant ducts. That's where we store the auxiliary fuel cells, Jace muttered. No. Wonder it's hiding there, she said. It has its own meal supply. Jace armed himself again. Plasma cutter, thermal grenades. Light beacon. Ilari took nothing. She didn't even wear armor, just the same orange suit. They moved quickly, staying low, avoiding crew halls. Most of the crew had been asleep or resting. He didn't want to panic anyone yet. Not until he saw it with his own eyes. Deck 5 was cold. The coolant units leaked a fine mist. Pipes hissed overhead. The glow of emergency lighting painted the walls with pale blue. Jace and Alari stopped near a maintenance panel. She placed her palm on it. The screen flickered. "It's inside," she whispered. "Alive? Yes. And dreaming." Jace took out a small drone and activated its camera. He fed the visual into a wrist display and lowered the drone through the vent. For a moment, static, then dash motion. It was small, no bigger than a child, black and spiked like a starfish made of metal. And shadow. It was latched onto a glowing fuel core, feeding. The drone buzzed. The creature turned. Its body shifted, melted, changed shape, and then it was gone. Jace's screen turned black. "Damn it!" He snapped. Alari gasped, grabbing the wall. Her skin flickered with sparks. "It knows we're here." Jace raised his cutter. "Where will it go?" "Anywhere, everywhere. It moves like electricity. It'll find new wires, new circuits." As she spoke, the hallway lights began to dim. One by one, the ship's hum dropped into silence. Then a loud screech rang through the metal floor. Every panel vibrated. Lights flashed red. The AI voice rang out. "Critical fuel loss detected. Core temperature unstable." Jace's heart dropped. Alari opened her eyes, glowing now with pure light. "It's trying to overload the core." Jace stared at her. "Why?" She looked at him calmly. "To kill everyone, and then feed on the fire." Asterisk. The walls shook with the force of the alarm. Jace grabbed the nearest support beam as the ship lurched beneath his feet. The warning lights were now pulsing solid red. The eye repeated in a cold voice. "Core overload in progress. Time to rupture. 18 minutes. Ilari's silver hair floated around her head like she was standing in a magnetic field. Her skin sparked softly, her veins glowing faintly blue. She was reacting to the thing inside the walls. To the parasite. "We have to stop it now," she said. "If it reaches the primary core, it won't just drain it. It'll cause it to explode." Jace tried to steady his breath. "If we lose the core, we lose the ship." "No," Ilari corrected. "If we lose the core, we all die." She turned and started running toward the ladder shaft leading to the lower core chamber. Jace followed her, his legs heavy but moving fast. They passed silent halls, the emergency lights blinking above. Some crew members stepped out of their quarters in confusion, but Jace shouted at them to return and seal their doors. "This is containment level red," he warned. Down in the subdeck, the temperature was already rising. The parasite was pulling energy too fast. Pipes were vibrating. Liquid coolant hissed as pressure built behind closed systems. Jace slammed the door to the lower reactor room open. The air hit him like a wall, hot and thick. The parasite was there. It had changed shape again. No longer small. Now it was long, like a centipede made of burning wires and moving smoke. It was wrapped around the base of the main Hyperion reactor, its tendrils glowing and sinking into every power line it could touch. It pulsed with energy, growing stronger with every second. It sensed them, turned its bulbous, shifting face toward them. No eyes, but a deep red glow like a furnace. Jace aimed his plasma cutter, but Ilari stepped in front of him. "That won't work. If you damage it now, it might release the energy it stored. We'll explode with it. So what do we do?" he shouted. She took a breath. "We starve it." Jace frowned. "You mean cut the power lines?" "No," she said. "Cut me off." "What? You gave me access to the grid," she explained. "But now it's using that access too. It's following my link like a trail. If I let it keep using me, it will reach every part of the ship." Jace froze. "If we cut you off, what happens to you?" "I lose all contact. My systems shut down. I won't die, not right away, but I'll go dark." "You'll go unconscious?" he asked. "I'll become something between alive and asleep. Like falling into deep ice. You have to trust me." Jace hesitated, looking at her glowing hands, the sparks on her face. She wasn't just part human, she was part machine. And if her system shut down, he nodded slowly. Tell me how. She knelt on the floor and pressed her palm into a wall panel. Manual override. Kill the neural sync. She opened a port on her suit, exposing wires and strange organic metal beneath. Cut this, right here. Jay stepped closer. His hands trembled slightly. He took out his tool and sliced the line. Alari gasped. Her body spasmed once and then went still. Her eyes stayed open, glowing dimly, then faded to black. She fell backward. Jace caught her before she hit the floor. The parasite shrieked. The noise was like metal screaming. The creature recoiled, pulling back from the core. It writhed, confused, its tendrils searching for the signal that had just been severed. Jace didn't waste time. He ran to the reactor's emergency terminal. It was offline. He slammed the side of the panel. Come on, wake up. Finally, it blinked to life. Manual control online, command. Jace typed in a redirection. Send emergency backup power to the auxiliary systems. Trap the parasite there. He watched as the lights along the floor pulsed outward. The creature responded, instantly lunging toward the auxiliary corridor where the surge went. Like a moth to flame. Jac, he activated the bulkhead seals. Thick doors slammed shut behind the creature as it moved, one after the other. He was leading it into a trap. Finally, it was inside the vent bay near the jettison chamber. Jace hit the final button. Ejecting compartment. The I said dot with a deep roar and a metal scream. The entire compartment burst from the ship, the parasite along. With half a ton of piping was gone. Outside, it would have no power lines. No heat. Nothing to feed on. It would freeze in seconds. Jace collapsed to his knees beside Alari. Her body was still cold. Her lips parted just slightly, her hands twitching. He touched her cheek. I don't know if you can hear me, but you saved us. Alari hadn't moved in hours. Jace sat beside her in the ship's med bay, his hands resting on his knees, eyes fixed on the heart monitor. The line was steady, but slow. Her body was still cold. She wasn't asleep, she was trapped somewhere between life and shutdown. She had warned him this would happen. And now here she was, motionless, caught in a silence that wasn't death, but wasn't life either. She had saved the ship. No one else knew that yet. The parasite was gone. Jace had jettisoned it into space, sealed the breach, rerouted systems, and restored basic power. The core was stable now. Fuel levels were back to normal minus what Alari had taken, which in the end was very little compared to what the creature had drained. Still, the crew was uneasy. Rumors were spreading fast. Someone said they saw him carrying a dead Zithari hybrid. Someone else swore they saw blue sparks shoot from her hands. Another said she was feeding on the ship's energy and controlling the AI. Jace hadn't spoken to anyone yet. He didn't trust them to understand. Not yet. The door opened. Lieutenant Vale stepped in. Her face was pale, her hair still damp from an emergency decontamination shower. She didn't smile. We just got system-wide reports back online, she said. Fuel stabilizing. We're out of danger, for now. Jace didn't look at her. I know. She crossed her arms. You want to explain why there's a strange girl hooked up to the medbay's fusion cell. She's not just a girl, he said. She's the reason we're still alive. Vale didn't reply. She walked up beside him and stared down at Alari. I saw the records, she said after a moment. You gave her full access to the grid, then you cut her off. Why? Jay stood up slowly. Because the thing stealing our fuel, it was using her as a path. She led me to it, helped me trap it. Then she let me disconnect her to save everyone. Vale looked at Alari's pale face. She's Zithari. She's half, Jace said. She was rejected by both sides, and now she's in a coma. Vale didn't speak for a while. Then she whispered, "She's dangerous." Jace turned to her. "So was the parasite. So are we. You want to talk about danger? You ever trust a reactor before you turned it on?" Vale frowned. "She's not a machine, Jace." "She's not just a machine," he said. "But she's not just a person either. She's both. That's what saved us." Vale shook her head. "The crew's asking questions. Some of them want her removed. Others are scared. One even asked if we should space her just in case." Jace clenched his fists. "You do that, and you'll have to go through me." Vale narrowed her eyes. "That's a threat?" "That's a promise." The two stared at each other, old friends, now standing on opposite sides of something no training could prepare them for. Finally, Vale exhaled. "I'll give you time. But not forever. We're heading into unknown space again. If she wakes up and becomes a problem." "She won't," Jay said. She left without another word. Jay sat down again. He looked at Ilari. Her chest rose and fell faintly, like a sleeping animal in winter. "You hear that?" he said softly. "They're afraid of you, but they don't even know what you gave up." He reached out and touched her hand. Her skin was cold, but not lifeless. "You saved the ship, and they want to throw you out like garbage." The lights above flickered once. Then again. Not like before, no power failure. Just a soft pulse. Jace looked up, alert. The lights stopped. He turned back to Ilari. Her finger had twitched. He leaned in. "Ilari?" No answer, but then her lips moved, just slightly. No sound came out. Her hand gripped his for a second, weak, but real. He stood quickly. "You're waking up." The medbay monitor beeped once. The pulse stronger, and then a whisper, soft as air. "Jace." He leaned in closer. "I saw something," she breathed. "Before I fell. There's more." He stared at her. "More what?" Her eyes fluttered. Open, glowing dim blue. "They didn't send one parasite," she whispered. "There's another." Ilari's voice was barely louder than a breath, but it hit Jace like a hammer. "There's another," she repeated, her fingers cold in his grip. "A second parasite. I felt it, just before you cut the link." Jace leaned in, heart racing. "Where is it?" "I don't know," she whispered. "It was distant, hidden. It wasn't connected to me yet, but it was watching. I swear." Jace stared at her. It made sense. The fuel loss had been too fast, too unpredictable. Maybe they had only ejected the smaller one, the scout. Maybe the real threat was still inside. Jace activated his wrist display. AI begin full ship-wide scan. Check for any remaining power anomalies, energy spikes, or unexpected movement, especially in restricted or sealed compartments. "Working," the AI responded. Ilari closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. Her voice was dry. "I can't link back into the grid, not fully. It's still offline in me. I'll need time." "You're not going back in," Jace said. "Not until I know you'll survive it." She opened her eyes. "If I don't, your ship won't either." Before Jace could argue, the AI spoke again. "Warning, low-frequency power drain detected. Location, Cargo Bay 3. Unauthorized access detected 9 minutes ago." Jace's heart dropped. Cargo Bay 3 had been sealed since the last emergency drop. They had stored broken drones there, and one of the mysterious escape pods. "Ilari," Jace said. "Someone or something opened that bay." Ilari pushed herself up slowly, her limbs shaky. "It's not someone, it's it. The second one." Jace helped her to her feet. "We'll go together," she nodded. "But I'll need fuel." He hesitated. "You mean, just a little," she said. "Enough to wake my systems, nothing more." Jace didn't argue. He led her to the emergency energy supply port, unlocked the panel, and watched as she pressed her hand against the glowing tube. Her veins lit up, color returning to her skin. Her breath steadied. The air around her shimmered faintly again. She was waking up fully now, and they were running out of time. They reached Cargo Bay 3 in under 4 minutes. The hallway was dim. Lights flickered faintly, but not because of power loss. This time, it was something else. Something present. The bay door was open halfway, bent at the edges like something strong had forced it. Jace raised his weapon. Ilari stepped behind him. They entered. The air was cold. Too cold. Inside, the lights were shattered. A deep humming sound filled the space, like a heartbeat made of metal. Then they saw it. The second parasite, but it was nothing like the first. This one was huge. It floated just above the ground, suspended in the air by its own gravitational pull. Its body looked like a writhing mass of black cables, pulsing veins, and glowing blue eyes. It was tethered into the ship's backup power grid, feeding silently, deeply. Ilari flinched. It's fully matured. It's already bound to the ship. Jace stepped back. If I shoot it? No, she said quickly. Not now. You'll trigger a chain reaction. It's merged with the auxiliary reactor. Jace stared at the creature. Then how do we stop it? We don't, Ilari said. We separate it. Jace frowned. What do you mean? Her eyes glowed again. You remember how you cut me off from the ship system? He nodded. She took a breath. Now I connect to the parasite instead and pull it out. You'll die. Maybe, she said. But this time we won't survive. If I don't. Jace looked at her face, so calm, even as wires flickered beneath her skin. She was afraid, but she was ready. He grabbed her wrist. No, not again. There has to be another way. She held his hand. I was made to be a weapon, Jace, but you made me something else. He couldn't speak. I'm not doing this because I was built for it, she said softly. I'm doing it because I want to protect you. Then she walked forward, toward the parasite. Jace shouted her name, but she didn't stop. Her hand touched the creature. There was a flash of light, a scream, not from her but from the parasite, echoing through the ship like a dying storm. Then silence. The ship shook. Bright, searing light exploded through the cargo bay, blinding Jace for a moment. The parasite's scream tore through the metal walls. Not a sound but a vibration, deep, unnatural, wrong. It thrashed violently, its tendrils reaching out, trying to grip something, anything to hold on to. But Ilari didn't stop. Her hand stayed on the parasite's glowing mass. Her body arched backward, light pouring from her chest, her limbs crackling with strange pulses. Sparks flew from her fingertips, and her suit began to tear as glowing circuits beneath her skin activated like a storm. Jace took a step forward, then stopped. The parasite was unraveling. Piece by piece, it came apart. Its form dissolved into smoke and static, screaming into the void. Energy surged through Ilari and back into the ship, redirecting power away from the backup grid. Then, suddenly silence. The parasite was gone. Ilari fell to her knees. Jace ran to her, dropping beside her. Ilari, stay with me. She looked up slowly. Her face was pale again, her breath shallow, but she was alive. It's done, she whispered. It can't feed anymore. I broke its link. Jace pulled her close. You did it. You saved us again. She gave a weak smile. That's twice now. You owe me. He laughed softly, even as his chest tightened with emotion. I'll pay you back. Somehow, her eyes began to close. Just don't let them throw me away. Jace held her tighter. Never. Hours later, the Viridian Volf was quiet. The crew had gathered in the mess hall, listening as Jace explained everything. The parasite, the fuel loss, Ilari's role. Her sacrifice. There were arguments, doubts, fear, but there was also silence. Reflection. Lieutenant Vale stood up and looked around the room. Whether we like it or not, she said, we'd all be dead without her. That thing would have drained our ship dry. She gave us time twice. We owe her that truth. One by one, the crew nodded. They didn't cheer, but they didn't resist either. In the medbay, Jace sat beside Ilari's bed again. Her systems were low, but stable. The doctors didn't know how to treat her exactly, but she was healing on her own time. In her own way, Jace leaned forward and whispered, "You said I owe you. Well, I figured it out." He placed a small metal object beside her, an official crew badge. It read, "Ilari, System Specialist, Viridian Volf. You're not cargo. You're crew," he said quietly. "You're one of us now." He started to stand when her fingers moved, slowly, shakily. Her hand reached out and curled around his. Her eyes opened. "You remembered," she whispered. He smiled. "Told you I would." She closed her eyes again, this time with peace. The ship continued forward, no longer broken, no longer hunted. It had scars, yes, but also something new. A hybrid girl once seen as a danger, now known as its savior, and a human who saw past what she was made of, because of who she chose to be. Together, they carried the Viridian Volf toward a future they would shape themselves, not with fear, but with trust. And with hope, forever written into the stars.